We're talking about catechesis now that is rooted in baptism. And so it's moving from volunteer to vocation. So, what would you like to share with us about that?
Yeah, so a lot of what I have to say is just echoing the Holy Father, Pope Francis. He's done a lot in his pontificate to really focus on the need to catechize more from the gospel. And part of that, or charismatic, that's a big word there, a Greek word, but a gospel-centered or gospel message catechesis. But part of being able to catechize this way is understanding our own identity as a catechist. So here's where we get into the connection with the baptism of the Lord, the feast we just celebrated, which is also the feast that kind of underpins this entire show and really the purpose behind it. We really want to convince everyone out there in cyberspace who are Catholics that by the virtue of being baptized, you are called to be a catechist. Now, there are different tiers, if you will, or different kinds of catechists. There's those that have had a lot of training and education and specialization, and we have different labels for those catechists, specialists or master catechists. But for the 99% of us, we're just generous people in the pews that are like, oh, we've heard the call several times that we need a catechist, so I will raise my hand and give it a shot. So, first of all, thank you, everyone out there who's ever tried being a catechist. It is not an easy task. That's where we get that idea of swimming upstream. It's not easy. And we need all the help we can get, hence shows like Catechist Stream. But Francis really focused on the catechist's identity. And the new directory, even for catechesis, zeroes in on this too. And both Francis and the new directory want to convince us that to be a good catechist, which we're called to be by virtue of our baptism, we're going to talk a little bit more about catechizing in a casual way for our last topic. Again, we're not all called to be formal catechists in the classroom or in classes, so to speak, but to focus on your own relationship with Christ and to use that relationship in your ministry of catechesis. So, in other words, to understand that to be a catechist is really about being as much as it is doing something like lesson planning, talking with parents, or trying to get a hold of parents because they're so elusive, or whatever the situation is, all those doing things that we do as catechists. There's also so much more being type of things that we need to be. And so, for example, Francis encourages us, and the new directory for catechesis encourages catechists to really get into the Word of God, particularly into the Gospels. Why? Because that's the good news, and that should be the centerpiece, not only of everything that we say as catechists, but also how we conduct ourselves as disciples. In other words, the witness that we give. And we give verbal witness a lot, and a lot about Jesus. We talk a lot about the church, a lot about the faith and the sacraments and moral life and prayer. But what really authenticates all of that, what really sort of persuades people that what is being said is true and meaningful, are the anecdotes, the personal stories that you can back this up with. In other words, being able to articulate how believing in what the church teaches has affected your life positively and has brought about transformation. How the accounts of Jesus or the teachings of Jesus, like the Beatitudes, how those have impacted you personally and changed your life for the better and has deepened your commitment and love for Jesus Christ. These things we're only going to be able to articulate if we begin to take stock of them, right, in our own lives. So this is part of that our identity as catechists. This is the vocational aspect. And again, it's part doing what I actually do to catechize, but it's also just as much a part about being, taking stock of my own faith journey and doing so by reflecting on the Word of God, doing so through prayer, of course, by ongoing learning as much as I can get my hands on, books, classes, catechist stream, resources from Sadlier. It's all these things. And but what's gonna bring it all to bear fruit is how well you can articulate how all that you've learned and your prayer and the worship that you've experienced, how that's impacted your life for the better, how
Yeah,
it's changed you.
D-
And when we begin to think about our own life, our own faith journey, our life as catechist, our vocation, it really does change the whole game. It really does make your words far more impactful. And the activities and the things that you do to engage students, it makes it far more impactful. So
Deacon
we're
Matt,
moving in a, yeah,
Deacon Matt, I just wanted to share that Shira just posted a comment that she said, I think it's so important as a catechist to be authentic and share your own faith moments. I teach
yeah, thank
second
you.
through eighth grades, and to be an authentic witness is what the children and adults are really looking for. We see enough hypocrisy and say one thing and do
Yeah,
something else. But to be
yeah.
that authentic witness of Christ that you're talking about, that comes from who we are in our faith life, is so very important.
And I got one last, thank you so much for that, Shira. That's a perfect comment. And I just want one little thing to put a little pin in this. And that is just it's, we are on 24/7, and this is a nice segue into the next topic. As disciples, we're on 24/7. When you think about catechesis, right now, as you understand it, in the time that you do catechesis, in the space that you do it, whether it's in class or online, I want you to realize and believe that these little changes that you start to make, like really paying attention to your own faith journey and utilizing that journey in your catechesis, these little things, these little dividends, they'll start paying little dividends, if you will, spiritual dividends with your students, with those you catechize, and it'll be a slow kind of accumulation of the fruit that's being born. So God can do anything, right? Anything's possible with God. So you start making some of these little changes, and huge effects you can see right away. But for most people, it's the long game, and it's these little changes with little effects that begin to accumulate. Just trust in Christ guiding you, and in that understanding of catechist as a vocation, leading how you catechize.